The driveway was cracked concrete, familiar in the way that home things are familiar. Small divots where water pooled after rain. A dark stain shaped like a comma from the oil leak Carol's old Subaru used to have. 3 dandelions growing through the expansion joint near the garage door that she'd been meaning to pull for weeks. The cat saw all of this through vision that had gone blurry around the edges, her pupils struggling to focus through the fog of exhaustion and malnutrition. But she knew, even half-blind, even dying, she knew this place. She'd walked 407 miles to stand here, 94 days, 3 months and 3 days. 2,256 hours since she'd last smelled this particular combination of Douglas fir and wet grass and the lavender soap Carol used on her hands. The cat took another step. Her right front paw screamed in protest, the infection that had been festering for 6 weeks, sending lightning bolts of agony up her leg. The pad had split open somewhere around Roseburg, torn on a piece of highway metal she hadn't seen in the dark. She'd licked it clean as best she could, had kept the wound from becoming gangrenous through sheer animal determination. But the infection had spread into the tissue between her toes, turning the skin an angry red that wept clear fluid when she walked. Another step. Her back legs trembled, muscles that had carried her across mountain passes and river valleys, and endless stretches of asphalt finally admitting defeat. One more step, just one more. She collapsed. The concrete was cold against her cheek. October in Oregon meant morning frost, and she could feel it seeping through what remained of her fur, through skin that had stretched tight over ribs that jutted like mountain ridges, down into bones that ached with a weariness so profound it felt like gravity had tripled. But she was home. She closed her eyes, pale green, flecked with gold. The left eye slightly larger than the right. The same eyes that had watched from the front window every afternoon for 6 years, waiting for a specific car to turn into this driveway. Inside the house, 63-year-old Carol Hendricks stood at her kitchen counter, pouring coffee into a mug that said, "World's Okayest Teacher," a gift from a former student who'd had a sharp sense of humor and a sharper understanding of Carol's self-deprecating nature. The coffee was too hot to drink yet, so she stood there, mug in both hands, staring at the steam rising in curls that reminded her of nothing in particular. This was her life now. Moments that meant nothing. Steam that looked like nothing. A Tuesday morning in late October that felt exactly like every other Tuesday morning for the past 3 months. Empty. She didn't know yet that 90 feet away, on her cracked concrete driveway, the impossible had just arrived. 3 months and 3 days earlier, Carol's life had looked nothing like this. She'd been standing in this same kitchen, scrambling eggs in a pan, while NPR murmured news about wildfire season and infrastructure bills, when her daughter Emma called. "Mom, sit down, I have news." Carol turned off the burner and sat at the small kitchen table that wobbled on one leg she kept forgetting to fix. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, the opposite of wrong. Jake got the promotion. We're moving to Seattle." The words took a moment to arrange themselves into meaning. Jake, Emma's husband, the promotion he'd been chasing for 2 years. Seattle, 400 miles north. "That's wonderful," Carol said, and meant it. Her daughter deserved good things, deserved a husband who provided well, deserved a bigger house for the two boys who were growing like weeds and already shared a bedroom that had become too small. We want you to come visit while we're house hunting. A week in late July. Help us pick neighborhoods. The boys miss you. I miss you. Carol's first thought, automatic and immediate, was, I can't leave Willow. Which was absurd, she knew. Willow was a cat, not a child. People left their cats for vacations all the time. Left them with automatic feeders and neighbors checking in, and everything was always fine. But Willow wasn't just a cat. Willow had appeared in Carol's life 6 years ago, during the worst period she'd ever lived through. The cancer had been caught early, stage 1, the prognosis excellent. But the treatment had broken something in Carol that the cancer itself hadn't touched. Not her body, her spirit. She'd spent 37 years teaching high school English, shaping minds, grading essays that ranged from brilliant to baffling, and she'd loved it. Had built her identity around it. Mrs. Hendricks, who assigned Toni Morrison and made students cry over beloved. Mrs. Hendricks, who could make Shakespeare feel alive and relevant to 16-year-olds convinced that nothing written before 1990 could possibly matter. Then cancer had stolen 6 months, surgery, recovery, radiation. When she'd finally felt well enough to return, the principal had already hired a long-term substitute. And when that school year ended, the district had offered Carol early retirement. Gently, kindly, with a nice package and genuine good wishes. She was 57 years old and suddenly had no idea who she was. She'd spent that first year of retirement drifting, sleeping too much, eating too little, going through days that blurred together into a gray fog of purposelessness. Emma called often, worried. Her son Michael called from Boston every Sunday with forced cheerfulness. Her doctor asked careful questions about depression and suggested medication. Then one March afternoon, a tortoiseshell cat walked through her open patio door like she'd been invited. Carol had been sitting on the couch halfway through a mystery novel she wasn't actually reading when she'd heard it. Not a meow, something quieter, a chirp. She'd looked up to find a cat standing in her living room, staring at her with pale green eyes that seemed to ask, "Well, are you just going to sit there?" No collar, no chip, the vet confirmed later. No missing cat reports that matched her description. Young adult, maybe 2 years old. Healthy, except for being slightly underweight. Tortoiseshell coat with a white blaze down her chest that looked like lightning. "She chose you," the vet had said, handing Carol a carrier with the cat inside. "That's how it works sometimes." Carol named her Willow after the tree in her backyard, the one her late husband Tom had planted the year they'd bought the house. Graceful, bendy, resilient. And Willow became everything Carol hadn't known she needed. Not in the overwhelming, consuming way, but in the quiet way that changes your days from empty to full. Carol would wake in the morning to find Willow curled against her stomach, purring before Carol even opened her eyes. She'd read on the couch in the evening with Willow draped across her lap, the weight and warmth of her more comforting than any blanket. When Carol ate breakfast at the kitchen table, Willow would sit on the corner and watch her, occasionally reaching out one paw to tap Carol's hand as if to say, "I see you. You're not alone." They developed routines, sacred, unbreakable routines that structured Carol's days in ways she desperately needed. Morning, Carol made oatmeal with cinnamon and brown sugar. Willow got a small spoonful of plain yogurt in a ceramic dish, painted with blue flowers that Carol had bought specifically for this purpose. Mid-morning, Carol would sit in the rocking chair by the front window, Tom's chair, the one she'd avoided for 3 years after he died, and Willow would claim the wedge of sunlight that fell across the armrest around 10:30. Carol would read mystery novels mostly, Louise Penny, Tana French, Julia Spencer Fleming, stories about solving puzzles, finding answers, making sense of chaos. Afternoon, they'd walk the perimeter of the backyard together, Willow leading, tail up, stopping to sniff interesting spots. Carol following, noticing things she'd stopped seeing. The way moss grew in thick patches on the north side of the fence. The robin's nest in the Douglas fir, the daffodils she'd planted with Tom that still came back every spring. Evening, Jeopardy at 7. Carol would shout answers at the television. Willow's ears would swivel toward her voice with each outburst. Sometimes Carol would reach down and scratch behind Willow's ears during commercial breaks and say things like, "Did you know the answer was the Treaty of Westphalia? Because I sure didn't." Night, Willow slept on Carol's pillow, her face inches from Carol's, close enough that Carol could feel her breath, could hear the small sounds she made in sleep, tiny chirps and sighs that suggested she was dreaming of hunting or playing or whatever cats dreamed about. "You know that's weird, right?" Emma had said once, visiting from Sacramento, watching them. "Having a cat sleep on your pillow." "She's not on my pillow. We share the pillow." "Mom, that's worse." But Carol didn't care. After Tom's death, after the cancer, after the loss of teaching, after so many endings that had come too fast and too hard, Willow's presence was proof of something. Not just that Carol had survived, but that life could still be gentle, still be warm, still include moments of simple, uncomplicated joy. So when Emma asked her to come to Seattle for a week, Carol's first instinct was refusal. But Emma's voice had carried something Carol recognized, not just excitement about the move, loneliness, the kind that comes from being surrounded by people, husband, children, neighbors, co-workers, and still feeling isolated. The kind Carol had lived with for years before Willow. "Okay," Carol said. "Let me think about it." She thought about it for 3 days. During those 3 days, she had entire conversations with Willow that she knew were absurd, but had anyway. "Emma needs me," she'd say, stroking Willow's back, while they sat together in the evening. "And I want to see the boys. They're growing up so fast, and I'm missing it. But I don't want to leave you." Willow would purr, a sound like a small engine, and Carol would take that as understanding, as permission. On the 3rd day, Carol called Emma back. "I'll come, but just for a week." "Yes, okay, I'm booking your flight right now, July 20th through the 27th. Mom, this is going to be so good." Carol hoped she was right. The morning of July 20th arrived with the kind of clear, bright weather that made Oregon's summers bearable. Not too hot, no wildfire smoke yet, just clean air and blue sky, and the smell of cut grass from Mr. Patterson's yard 2 houses down. Carol had been preparing for 3 days. Automatic feeder programmed and tested. 3 water bowls placed around the house. Kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, all filled to the brim. Litter box cleaned. Windows closed and locked except for the bathroom window. which she cracked open exactly 4 inches. Enough for air circulation, too small for Willow to squeeze through. She'd asked Harold Patterson, her 76-year-old neighbor, to check in every other day. "Just make sure she has food and water," Carol said, handing him her spare key. "She's shy, so don't worry if you don't see her. As long as the food bowl's been touched, she's fine." Harold nodded, pocketing the key. "No problem, Carol. Have a good trip." The morning she left, Carol sat on the floor of her bedroom with Willow in her lap for 15 minutes, just petting her, memorizing the feel of her, the softness of her fur, the delicate bones of her skull under Carol's palm, the way she'd press her face into Carol's hand, demanding more attention with that insistence cats have when they want something. "I'm going away for a little while," Carol said, her voice quiet. "Just a week. Mr. Patterson will come feed you. You'll be fine." Willow chirped, that small questioning sound she made when Carol spoke directly to her, as if she understood that she was being addressed and wanted to respond, but didn't know what to say. "I'll be back before you even miss me." Carol kissed the top of Willow's head, right between her ears where the fur was softest, and stood. She grabbed her suitcase from the closet, took one last look at Willow, who'd already claimed her spot on the bed, curled into a perfect circle, eyes half closed. "I love you," Carol said. Then she walked out of the room, down the stairs, and out the front door. She didn't look back. Didn't see Willow's eyes open fully as the door closed. Didn't see her uncurl and pad to the window. Didn't see her watch. Carol's Uber pull away, her tail low, her ears back. Didn't know that something in Willow's chest had started to ache, the way it always ached when Carol left, but worse this time, deeper. The kind of ache that animals feel but can't name. The kind that says, something is wrong, something is ending. The Uber driver, a man named David, who had 3 cats of his own, talked the entire way to the airport about his youngest daughter's wedding next month. Carol smiled and nodded and made appropriate responses, but her mind was already in Seattle, already imagining the week ahead. She'd help Emma tour houses. She'd play with her grandsons in parks she didn't know. She'd feel useful again, needed again, like a mother instead of just a woman living alone with a cat. It would be good. It would be fine. Willow would be fine. The plane took off on time. Carol had a window seat and watched Eugene shrink below her until it disappeared into patches of green and brown and the glint of rivers cutting through landscape. 4 hours later, she landed in Seattle to find Emma waiting at baggage claim, grinning, her 7-year-old son, Lucas, bouncing on his toes beside her. "Grandma!" Lucas crashed into her legs, wrapping his arms around her knees, and Carol felt something in her chest loosen. This was why she'd come. The week in Seattle was exactly what Carol needed. She helped Emma and Jake tour 6 houses, offering opinions on school districts and kitchen layouts, and whether hardwood or carpet made more sense with 2 young boys. She played endless games of tag with Lucas and his younger brother Noah, in parks that smelled like cedar and salt water. She made dinners in Emma's cramped rental kitchen, filling the space with the scents of garlic and rosemary, and the kind of comfort food Emma had grown up with. On day 3, Emma asked the question Carol had been expecting. "Have you thought about moving up here after we get settled?" They were sitting on Emma's tiny balcony, drinking wine, watching the sun set over Puget Sound in shades of orange and pink that looked fake, like something from a postcard. Carol had thought about it. Of course she'd thought about it. "Maybe," she said carefully, "it would be nice to be close to you again, to see the boys more often." "But," Emma prompted, knowing her mother's hedging voice. "But Willow." Emma sighed. "Mom, you can bring Willow." "She doesn't travel well, and she's 6 years old now, uprooting her." "She's a cat, not a person. She'll adjust." But Carol wasn't sure that was true. Willow had chosen Carol's house, had chosen that specific sunbeam in that specific window, had claimed that spot on Carol's pillow after years of sleeping in that exact position. Could Carol really ask her to give all that up? "I'll think about it," Carol said. And she did think about it for the rest of the week. Imagined packing up the house in Eugene, selling it or renting it, moving to Seattle, being Grandma who lived 10 minutes away, instead of Grandma who visited a few times a year. It was tempting, but something in her chest resisted, the same instinct that had made her adopt Willow in the first place. The knowledge that some bonds once formed couldn't be easily relocated. On day 7, Carol's flight home was delayed. First by an hour, then 2, then 4. She finally landed in Eugene at 11:15 p.m., 3 hours later than planned. The Uber from the airport was silent this time, the driver listening to a true crime podcast through his headphones, and Carol watched familiar streets pass by in darkness. Downtown Eugene, the university campus, the residential neighborhoods where houses glowed with warm light, and families were probably settling in for the night. She felt strange coming home. Not quite dread, but not quite relief either. Something in between. The feeling you get when you've been away long enough that your own life feels unfamiliar. The Uber pulled into her driveway at 11:47. Carol tipped through the app, grabbed her suitcase, and walked to the front door. The house was dark, silent. She unlocked the door and flipped on the hall light. "Willow, I'm home, baby girl." Silence. "Willow?" Carol wheeled her suitcase inside and closed the door behind her, kicked off her shoes, walked into the kitchen, turning on lights as she went. The automatic feeder was almost empty. Good. That meant Willow had been eating, but the water bowls were all full, exactly as full as Carol had left them. A cold feeling started in Carol's stomach and spread outward. She walked through the house, calling Willow's name, checking all the usual spots. Under the bed, behind the couch, in the closet where Willow sometimes hid when she felt overwhelmed. Nothing. Carol's heart was pounding now, her hands shaking as she opened cabinet doors, looked behind furniture, checked spaces too small for a cat to fit into because desperation made her illogical. Then she saw it. The bathroom window. It wasn't cracked 4 inches anymore. It was open, fully open. The screen pushed out, hanging at an angle. Carol ran to the window and looked out at the dark backyard. "Willow, Willow!" Her voice cracked on the second call, panic making it raw. She ran downstairs and out the back door, still in her socks, and searched the yard with her phone's flashlight. Under the deck, behind the shed, in the Douglas fir's low branches where Willow sometimes climbed, nothing. She ran to Harold Patterson's house and pounded on the door, not caring that it was almost midnight. not caring about anything except finding her cat. Harold answered in his bathrobe, looking confused and worried. "Carol, when did you last see Willow?" Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday. I came by and filled the food bowl and..." "Did you open the bathroom window?" I might have. It was hot, and I thought..." "She's gone, Harold. Willow's gone." Harold's face went pale. "Oh, God! Carol, I'm so sorry. I didn't think..." But Carol was already running back to her house, already grabbing her car keys, already making plans. She drove through the neighborhood until 2 in the morning, windows down, calling Willow's name until her voice gave out. She checked every yard, every alley, every space a frightened cat might hide. At 2:30, she went home and printed flyers, color photos of Willow, Carol's phone number in large text, missing cat, reward. She spent the hours between 3 a.m. and sunrise, taping flyers to every telephone pole, every grocery store bulletin board, every community center within a 2-mile radius. By the time the sun came up, Carol had been awake for 24 hours straight. She went home and called every animal shelter in Lane County. Tortoiseshell, green eyes, white blaze on chest, about 9 pounds. Answers to Willow. No one had seen her. Carol posted on every lost pet Facebook group she could find, every neighborhood app, every online forum. She fielded calls all day from people who'd seen cats that might be Willow. She drove to each location, checked each sighting, wrong color, wrong size, wrong markings, wrong everything. By the end of day 2, Carol had slept 3 hours total and cried so hard she'd made herself sick. Emma called. "Mom, what's wrong? You sound terrible." "Willow's gone." "What do you mean gone?" "She got out while I was in Seattle. She's been missing for at least 5 days, maybe longer. I've looked everywhere and I can't find her." Emma drove up from Sacramento that same day, arriving by evening. She found Carol sitting on the front porch in the dark, staring at the empty street. "Mom." Emma sat beside her, putting an arm around Carol's shoulders. She probably just got scared and is hiding close by. Cats do this. They come back. "It's been 5 days, maybe 6. She could be dead." "Don't say that." She could have been hit by a car, taken by a coyote, trapped somewhere without food or water. She could be suffering right now, and I can't help her. Carol's voice broke completely on the last word, dissolving into sobs that bent her double. Emma held her while she cried, didn't offer platitudes, didn't say everything would be okay, just held her. After a while, Carol's tears slowed. She wiped her face on her sleeve and said, "I shouldn't have left her. You didn't know this would happen. I knew she needed me, and I left anyway." The guilt was its own animal, living in Carol's chest, eating her from the inside. The days blurred together after that. Carol stopped sleeping in her bed because Willow's scent was still on the pillow, and smelling it made the grief unbearable. She slept on the couch instead for 3 or 4 hours at a time, waking with her heart pounding, thinking she'd heard Willow meowing. She walked the neighborhood twice a day, every day, shaking treat bags, calling Willow's name even after her voice went hoarse. She checked the animal shelters in person, walked up and down the rows of cages, looking at every cat, hoping against hope Potential sightings still came in. Carol chased every single one, and every single one was wrong. By the end of August, 2 months after Willow had disappeared, the calls had stopped coming. The flyers had been taken down or weathered into illegibility. The Facebook posts had been buried under hundreds of other lost pets. Carol had to accept what she'd been refusing to believe. Willow was gone, truly gone, either dead or so far away that she'd never find her way back. Emma had returned to Sacramento with a promise to check in daily. Carol's son Michael called every few days from Boston, his voice carefully cheerful, talking about anything except the cat. Carol kept Willow's things exactly where they'd been. Food bowls on the floor, water dishes filled, favorite toys scattered in the living room. The fleece blanket Willow loved draped over the arm of the couch, just in case she came home. But by September, Carol had started to think the unthinkable. Maybe it was time to clean everything away, to accept reality, to start the process of grief that had an ending instead of this endless waiting. She was standing in the kitchen on a Thursday afternoon, staring at Willow's food bowls, trying to find the courage to put them away, when her phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Carol Hendricks? Yes? This is Dr. Sarah Brennan from the Emergency Veterinary Clinic. Do you have a cat named Willow? Carol's heart stopped, then started again, too fast, slamming against her ribs. Yes. Did someone bring her in? Is she okay? Is she alive? She's alive. She's here right now. A woman found her in her driveway this morning and brought her in. We scanned for a chip and found your information. Carol was already grabbing her keys, already running for the door. I'm coming right now. Don't let her leave, please. We're not going anywhere. She needs immediate treatment. How fast can you get here? 15 minutes. Carol made it in 11. She ran into the emergency clinic, her breath coming in gasps, and nearly shouted at the receptionist. My cat, Willow, someone just called. Where is she? The receptionist, a young woman with kind eyes, stood immediately. I'll get Dr. Brennan. Dr. Brennan appeared through a door marked staff only 30 seconds later. She was young, maybe 30, with red hair pulled back in a ponytail and the kind of tired eyes that come from working overnight shifts. Ms. Hendricks, come with me. Carol followed her through the door, down a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and fear, into an examination room. And there, lying on a metal table, covered with a soft blue blanket, was Willow. Except it couldn't be Willow. This cat was skeletal, ribs showing sharply through matted fur, one ear torn and healed crooked, right front paw swollen to twice its normal size, the pads cracked and bloody, but the eyes, pale green, flecked with gold, the left slightly larger than the right. Oh my God, Carol whispered. Willow? The cat's eyes opened, focused on Carol's face, and she made a sound. Not quite a meow. Something smaller, weaker, but unmistakably a greeting. Carol moved without thinking, reaching for her, scooping her into her arms, despite Dr. Brennan's warning. Careful, she's ill. But Willow didn't struggle. She just pressed her face into Carol's neck and started purring. The sound was rough, unpracticed, like an engine that hadn't run in months, but it was there. Carol sank into the chair in the corner of the exam room, holding Willow against her chest, and cried. "How?" she managed to say through tears. "How is this possible?" Dr. Brennan pulled up a stool and sat down. Her expression was serious, professional, but Carol could see wonder in her eyes too. The woman who brought her in lives at 847 Maple Grove. She said she found her collapsed in her driveway this morning. "That's my address," Carol said, not understanding. "That's my house." "I know Willow came home. The question is, where had she been?" Carol shook her head, still crying, still holding Willow like she might disappear if Carol loosened her grip even slightly. "I was in Seattle when she got out, 400 miles away. She's been missing for 2 months and 3 days. Dr. Brennan was quiet for a long moment. Then she said quietly, "Miss Hendricks, I think your cat walked home." "That's not possible." "The injuries I'm seeing suggest otherwise. She has wear patterns on her paw pads consistent with long-distance travel on pavement. She has frostbite on her ear tips, which means she was exposed to cold temperatures, probably high altitude. She has healed injuries from what look like predator attacks, and she's lost approximately 40% of her body weight." Carol looked down at Willow, at the creature in her arms who barely resembled the cat she'd left behind. 400 miles, she whispered. "It happens," Dr. Brennan said. "Not often, but it happens. Cats have an ability called magnetoreception. They can sense the Earth's magnetic field and use it to navigate. Combined with spatial memory and scent markers, some cats can find their way home from incredible distances." "But 400 miles, through mountains, across rivers, how?" "I don't know," Dr. Brennan admitted, "but she did it. Whatever she went through to get back to you, she survived it." Carol pressed her face against Willow's head and breathed in the smell of her. Underneath the dirt and infection and exhaustion, she was still there, still Willow. "Is she going to be okay?" Dr. Brennan stood and began examining Willow gently while Carol held her. "She's severely malnourished, about 4 pounds underweight, which is critical for a cat her size. This paw has a significant infection that spread into the tissue between her toes. She has mild frostbite on both ear tips, multiple healed lacerations that I'd guess came from fights or predator encounters. She's dehydrated, and she has a slight fever, probably from the infection." Carol felt her throat tighten. "But she'll live?" Dr. Brennan met her eyes. "Yes, with treatment, she'll recover. It'll take time. Antibiotics for the infection, fluids for the dehydration, a special high-calorie diet to get her weight back up, but she's going to make it." Carol exhaled for what felt like the first time in 10 minutes. "She's a fighter," Dr. Brennan added. "Whatever she endured to get home, it should have killed her, but she refused to stop." They kept Willow overnight for IV fluids and observation. Carol didn't want to leave her, but Dr. Brennan gently insisted. "She needs rest, and honestly, so do you. Go home, sleep, come back in the morning." Carol went home to her empty house and sat on the couch where Willow usually slept. And she cried, not from sadness this time, from relief so overwhelming it felt like drowning. Willow had come home, against every odd, against every impossibility, against 400 miles of wilderness and highway and mountains. Willow had come home. What Carol didn't know yet was the story of those 94 days. She didn't know about the river crossing where Willow had nearly drowned. She didn't know about the truck driver who'd fed her tuna at a rest stop. She didn't know about the homeless man who'd shared his last sandwich with a dying cat behind a gas station in Roseburg. She didn't know about the snow, the freezing nights, the hawk attack, the coyotes, the infection that had almost turned septic. She didn't know any of it, but Willow did. And this is that story. 412 miles south of Eugene, on the evening of July 23rd, a tortoiseshell cat sat under a picnic table at a rest stop just outside Redding, California, and tried to understand what had gone wrong. Everything smelled wrong. The air was too dry, carrying scents of dust and scrub brush instead of the wet cedar and Douglas fir she knew. The sky was the right color blue, but the light fell at the wrong angle. Even the insects sounded different. A constant buzz of cicadas instead of the quiet hum of Oregon mosquitoes. She'd been at this rest stop for 6 days. She'd gotten here by accident, by a series of panicked decisions that had taken her farther from home with each frightened choice. The first mistake had been leaving the house. She'd been fine at first, those first 2 days after Carol left. The house was quiet, but not frighteningly so. The automatic feeder dispensed food at regular intervals. Water bowls were full. She slept in Carol's bed, on Carol's pillow, breathing in the scent that was already starting to fade. Then on day 2, the man had come. Not Carol, a stranger. Harold, though Willow had no name for him. He'd let himself in with a key, moving through the house with heavy footsteps, and Willow had hidden under the bed, her heart racing. She'd waited until he left. Then, desperate for fresh air and sunshine, she'd gone to the bathroom window, the one Carol always left cracked. It had been fully open. Willow had jumped onto the windowsill, meaning to sit there and watch birds. But something outside had startled her. A dog barking, a car backfiring, something loud and sudden. She jumped, out the window, into the backyard. Under the deck before she'd even realized she'd made a choice. And then she'd been outside, and the window was too high to jump back to, and the stranger was still inside the house. She'd waited under the deck until evening, until the stranger finally left, and the house was quiet again. Then she'd tried to get back inside, but all the doors were closed. The bathroom window was now also closed, the screen back in place. She'd meowed at the front door, scratched at it, waited. No one came. She'd spent that night under the porch, cold and confused, and beginning to feel the first stirrings of real fear. On day 3, she'd waited by the front door from sunrise to sunset. Carol would come home. Carol always came home. But the sun set and Carol didn't appear. On day 4, something had spooked her. A loose dog running through the neighborhood, barking wildly. Willow had run. Just run, pure panic, overriding thought. And by the time she'd stopped running, she was in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. She'd tried to retrace her steps, but nothing smelled right. Every street looked like every other street. She'd walked in circles for hours, growing more desperate, more lost. Eventually, she'd followed a delivery truck because its engine sound was familiar. That truck had taken her to an industrial area. She'd followed another truck from there, this one heading south on Interstate 5. For days, she'd been moving in the wrong direction, pulled by fear and confusion. getting farther from home with every mile. By the time she'd reached the rest stop in Reading, she'd been traveling for 4 days and had covered roughly 50 miles. South, away from Eugene, away from Carol, away from home. At the rest stop, she'd found food, scraps in trash cans, a dropped hot dog, half a hamburger left on a picnic table. She'd eaten desperately, her stomach cramping from the sudden richness after days of eating almost nothing. She could survive here. There was food, water from a leaking faucet near the restrooms, shelter under the vending machine area where the roof overhang kept rain off. She'd made a den of sorts in a gap between the vending machine and the wall. Warm, dark, safe. She could stay. But on day 6, as the sun set behind the mountains and the temperature dropped, Willow felt something she hadn't felt before. Wrong. Not danger wrong. Not fear wrong. Direction wrong. She was in the wrong place. She sat at the edge of the parking lot and looked south, where the highway continued into the gathering darkness. South was warmth. South was easier survival. South made sense, but south felt wrong. She turned and looked north. North was mountains, cold, difficulty, but north felt right. She couldn't explain it, couldn't articulate it, even in the simple language of instinct. But something in her chest, something that had nothing to do with hunger or thirst or the need for shelter, pulled north, toward home, toward Carol. She stood, her body stiff from days of inadequate rest, her muscles aching from stress and poor nutrition. And she started walking north. The first week of the journey was pure survival. Willow had no concept of distance, didn't know she was trying to travel 400 miles, didn't know it was impossible. She only knew that north was right and south was wrong, and she followed that knowledge with the kind of faith that doesn't require understanding. She stayed close to Interstate 5, using it as a guide. The highway was a constant, a north-south line that didn't curve or twist or lead her astray. She could smell it from miles away, the particular scent of hot asphalt and exhaust and rubber. She learned quickly which times were safest for traveling. Early morning before dawn, when the sky was still dark but beginning to lighten. The traffic was light then, long gaps between cars, easy to stay hidden in the tall grass along the shoulder. Late evening after sunset but before full dark. Similar traffic patterns, and the cooling air carried scents more clearly, helping her navigate. She avoided midday entirely. Too many cars, too much noise, too much danger. During those hours, she'd find shelter and sleep fitfully, her body trying to recover from the exertion of walking. She learned to hunt, not well. Her whole life had been bowls of food appearing twice a day, regular and reliable. She'd never needed to hunt before. But hunger is an excellent teacher. She caught grasshoppers first. They were slow, easy targets. She'd watch them jump, track their landing, pounce. The taste was bitter and wrong, but they were food, protein, energy. On day 8, she caught a lizard. It had been sunning itself on a rock, sluggish from the heat, and Willow had moved faster than she'd known she could. The lizard fought, its tail detaching in a desperate escape mechanism. But she'd held on, killed it with a quick bite to the head like instinct told her to. The lizard tasted better than grasshoppers. On day 11, she caught her first mouse. She'd been resting in tall grass, near an agricultural area, trying to escape the midday heat when she'd heard it, the tiny rustling sound of something moving through the grass stalks. Her body had reacted before her mind caught up. Crouch, wait, listen. There, 3 feet away. Moving slowly, unaware of her presence, she'd pounced, felt the small body under her paws, killed it quickly, efficiently, with a bite to the back of the neck. And then she'd eaten it, tearing through fur and skin and bone, consuming everything except the tail and feet. Real food, proper nutrition, the kind of protein her body desperately needed. She felt stronger for the first time since leaving the rest stop. Water was harder. She drank from puddles when she found them, from drainage ditches carrying runoff from farms, from a stream that crossed under the highway through a culvert where she had to crawl through the dark, water up to her chest, terrified but driven by thirst. The water often tasted strange, chemical, wrong, but it kept her alive. On day 14, she reached her first major obstacle, the Klamath River. She'd been following the highway, which had climbed into mountains and begun to curve more than she liked, but the pull north was still strong, still clear, and she'd kept walking until she came to the river. It was late afternoon, the sun low in the sky, when she reached the bank. The river was maybe 40 feet across at this point, flowing fast with mountain snowmelt. The water was brown with silt, churning over rocks that broke the surface in white foam. Willow stood on the bank for a long time, watching the water, feeling the spray on her face. She couldn't swim this. She'd never learned to swim. Cats could swim if they had to. Instinct told her that. But this river was too fast, too violent. If she tried to swim across, the current would take her. She'd drown. But north was across the river. She paced the bank as the sun set, looking for a crossing point, a shallow spot, rocks to jump across, anything. The light faded. She was exhausted, her paws sore, her stomach empty despite the mouse she'd caught that morning. She curled up under a bush and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. The sound of the river was too loud, too constant, and beneath the fear was something stronger. The pull north. Carol was north. Home was north. She had to cross. At dawn, she started walking again, following the river upstream, looking for her chance. She found it around mid-morning. A fallen tree stretched across the river, its massive trunk creating a bridge from one bank to the other. The tree had been there for years, its bark weathered smooth by rain and sun, its branches long since broken off. Willow approached carefully. The trunk was maybe 2 feet in diameter, wide enough to walk on if she was careful, but it was at least 20 feet above the water, and the surface looked slick with moss and morning dew. She put one paw on the trunk, felt it, tested it, solid. She stepped up fully, all 4 paws on the log, and began to cross. The first few steps were fine. The log was stable, wide enough that she wasn't in danger of falling if she stayed centered. But 10 feet in, she looked down. The river churned below her, brown and fast and deadly. The sound of it filled her ears, drowning out everything else. The spray reached her even at this height, making the log surface wet and treacherous. Her right front paw slipped, just a little, just an inch. But it was enough to throw off her balance. She felt herself tipping sideways, felt gravity pulling her toward the water. and her claws dug into the bark with desperate strength. She caught herself, barely. Her back legs dangled over the edge, her claws the only thing keeping her from falling. The water roared beneath her, so close she could feel its cold breath. She pulled herself back up onto the log with strength she didn't know she had, scrambled forward, slipping again, catching herself again, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. By the time she reached the far bank, her whole body was trembling. She collapsed in the grass and lay there for an hour, unable to move, unable to think, her system flooded with adrenaline that had nowhere to go. But she'd made it. She'd crossed the river. On day 17, she crossed from California into Oregon. She had no idea this was significant. The state line meant nothing to her, just another stretch of highway with a sign she couldn't read. But something in the air changed. The humidity increased. The trees looked different. More Douglas fir and less scrub oak. The soil smelled right, rich and dark instead of dusty. She was going the right way. On day 20, she had her first human encounter that wasn't threatening. She was under a picnic table at a rest stop outside Medford, eating dropped French fries, when a man noticed her. She tensed, ready to run, but he didn't approach. He just stood about 10 feet away, watching her. Then he walked to his truck, a massive semi with 18 wheels and an engine that rumbled like thunder, and came back with a can of tuna. He opened it, set it on the ground, and walked away. Willow waited until he was back at his truck before approaching. The tuna smelled like heaven, salty, oily, rich with protein and fat her body desperately needed. She ate the entire can in about 90 seconds. The man returned an hour later with a cardboard box lined with a blanket. "You can't stay here," he said, his voice gentle. "But I can take you to a shelter in Medford. They'll take care of you." Willow understood none of the words but all of the intent when he reached for her. She bolted, ran until her lungs burned, until her legs gave out, until she collapsed in a drainage ditch miles from the rest stop. She couldn't be caught, couldn't be taken away from the path north. If someone caught her and took her somewhere else, she'd lose her direction. She'd never find her way back to Carol. So she had to keep moving, had to stay free, even if it meant refusing help. That night, it rained for the first time since she'd started her journey. Not a gentle Oregon rain, a storm, lightning cracking the sky open. Thunder so loud it felt like the earth was breaking. Rain so heavy she couldn't see 3 feet in front of her. She found shelter under a sheet of corrugated metal, leaning against a barbed wire fence, but the ground turned to mud within minutes. The water pooled around her, seeping through her fur, soaking her to the skin. She shivered through the night, her body temperature dropping, her muscles cramping from the cold. By morning, she could barely stand. This was the first time she truly thought about stopping, just lying down in the mud and letting it end. She was so tired, so hungry despite the tuna, so cold that her bones ached. But when the sun finally broke through the clouds, warming the ground, drying her fur, she thought of something. Carol's lap, the weight of Carol's hand on her back, the sound of Carol's voice, reading aloud from books Willow didn't understand, but loved anyway, because the sound of that voice meant safety, meant love, meant home. she stood up and kept walking. By day 35, Willow had made it to Grants Pass, roughly 200 miles from Eugene, halfway. But she was deteriorating in ways that were becoming harder to ignore. Her right front paw had been bothering her since day 28. She'd stepped on something sharp, a piece of broken glass on the highway shoulder, and the pad had torn open. She'd licked it clean as best she could, had kept it from becoming immediately infected through constant grooming. But by day 35, it was infected anyway. The pad had split completely, exposing the tender flesh underneath. The tissue between her toes had swollen hot and angry red. It hurt to put weight on it. Every step sent pain shooting up her leg, but she couldn't stop walking. North, she had to keep going north. Her ribs had become visible around day 20, sharp edges pressing against skin. By day 35, they were stark, every bone clearly defined. She'd lost at least 3 pounds, maybe more, a third of her body weight gone. Her coat had become matted with mud, dried blood from small cuts, tree sap she'd brushed against in dense forest. She no longer groomed herself regularly. She was too tired, too focused on survival. Grooming was a luxury she couldn't afford. She rested in Grants Pass for 3 days, unable to continue. She'd found shelter under an abandoned house on the outskirts of town, crawling through a gap in the foundation into a crawl space that was dry and dark and smelled like mice. She caught 2 mice over those 3 days. Small victories that barely registered as triumph anymore. On day 38, she forced herself to keep moving. On day 44, winter arrived. She'd been in the mountains for a week, following the highway as it climbed through passes that cut between peaks. The elevation gain had been brutal, her infected paw screaming with every uphill step, her lungs working harder in the thinner air. And then one night, the temperature plummeted. She woke shivering, her breath visible in the air, her body curled as tight as possible to conserve heat. Snow began falling around mid-morning, just a dusting at first, light flakes that melted when they hit the ground. But within hours, it was accumulating, coating the highway shoulder, making everything white and unfamiliar. Willow kept walking. The snow deepened over the next 5 days. 2 inches, 4 inches, 6. Her paws went numb almost immediately. She'd walk until she couldn't feel them anymore, then stop to lick them, trying to restore circulation. Her damaged paw left blood prints in the snow, bright red against white, a trail that told the story of her determination. She found shelter wherever she could, under bridges, in the space between support pillars and embankment, where the concrete provided some protection from wind. In culverts, crawling through metal drainage pipes that still held warmth from the previous day's sun. Once in the wheel well of a parked semi-truck, pressed against the tire that radiated heat, until the engine started and the truck began moving, and she'd had to jump out, tumbling into the snow, scrambling away from the massive wheels. On day 52, she caught a snowshoe hare. She'd been resting under a pine tree, trying to get warm when she'd seen it. A flash of white against white, the hare's winter coat nearly invisible in the snow. But Willow had seen it, had tracked it with eyes that had become sharper through necessity. She'd waited, patient, still, barely breathing. The hare had come closer, foraging for food buried under the snow. Willow had pounced. The hair was fast, faster than mice or lizards, and it fought. But Willow was desperate, and desperation made her fierce. She'd brought it down, killed it with a bite to the throat, and dragged it back to her shelter. The hare was enough food for 3 days. She'd gorged herself that first day, eating until her stomach ached, then cached the rest in the snow. Real meat, fat, calories. It kept her alive through the worst of the cold. On day 55, she stopped walking, not by choice, not by decision. Her body simply gave out. She'd made it to the outskirts of Roseburg, about 70 miles from Eugene. So close. But she couldn't take another step. She'd been walking through a commercial area, staying in the shadows behind buildings when her legs buckled. She collapsed behind a gas station near the dumpsters in a space where cardboard boxes created a makeshift windbreak, and she closed her eyes. Her body felt wrong, hot despite the cold. Her infected paw had swollen to twice its normal size, the flesh tight and painful. She could feel the fever burning through her, could feel her system trying to fight the infection and failing. This is it. Some part of her understood. This is as far as you go. She lay there for 6 hours, snow accumulating on her fur, her breathing shallow. The sun had set when she heard footsteps. She didn't have the energy to run. A man knelt beside her. She smelled him before she saw him. Unwashed, smoke, alcohol, but also something else. Kindness. "Oh crap, hey kitty, you alive?" His voice was rough but gentle. He touched her side with the hands that were cold but careful. "You're breathing, okay, you're gonna be okay." He disappeared for a moment, and Willow's eyes drifted closed again. Then he was back, and he was holding something near her mouth. "Come on, eat something, you gotta eat." Sandwich, she could smell it. Bread, processed meat, mayonnaise. Her mouth watered despite the fever, despite the exhaustion. She took a bite, then another. The man, whose name was Dennis, though Willow would never know that, sat with her for an hour, fed her piece by piece, talked to her in a low voice. "I had a cat once," he said, "long time ago, before everything went to shit. Orange tabby named Chester, best cat. Used to sleep on my chest every night. Made this weird chirping sound when he was happy." He paused, his hand resting gently on Willow's side. "You remind me of him. You're a fighter, I can tell. Whatever you're trying to do, don't give up. You're gonna make it." The sandwich was gone. Willow felt marginally stronger. Not healthy, not well, but strong enough to stand. She pushed herself to her feet, swaying, her vision blurring. Dennis reached out like he might try to stop her, but then pulled his hand back. "Yeah, okay. You got somewhere you need to be." Willow took a step, then another. Her legs held. She limped away into the darkness. Dennis watched her go. "Good luck," he called after her. That sandwich, that moment of kindness from a stranger who had almost nothing, kept Willow alive for the next 4 days. On day 60, something changed. Willow was walking along the highway shoulder when a scent hit her that made her stop completely. Douglas fir. Not just any Douglas fir, a specific type. The same trees that grew in Carol's yard, their sap carrying a particular sweetness that was different from other firs. She stood absolutely still, nose working, trying to catch the scent again. There, fainter, but there. She was close. On day 68, she recognized a landmark. A covered bridge, red paint faded to rust, spanning a river she didn't remember the name of but remembered the shape of. She'd seen this bridge once, years ago. Carol had driven past it on the way to a vet appointment in Cottage Grove. Willow had been in a carrier in the back seat, but she'd looked out the window, and the bridge had impressed itself on her memory. For some reason she couldn't articulate. She was less than 30 miles from Eugene. The knowledge gave her strength she shouldn't have had. Her body was failing. The infection in her palm had spread up her leg, a red streak visible under the fur. She'd developed a cough, a rattling sound in her chest that made breathing difficult. Her vision was blurry, her balance off. But she was close. She could feel Carol, not literally, but in the way animals feel things humans have forgotten how to sense: direction, connection, home. On day 79, she entered Eugene city limits. The houses looked familiar now, not the specific houses, but the type, the style: single-story ranches, split levels, the particular architecture of middle-class Oregon neighborhoods. Built in the 70s and 80s, she'd been here before, in Carol's car, going to the vet, going to the groomer, going to the park. She knew these streets. On day 86, she entered her neighborhood. The corner store with the faded Coca-Cola sign. The park with the duck pond where Carol had taken her once in a carrier to watch the birds. The elementary school with the chain-link fence. She knew these places. She walked faster, her body finding energy from somewhere, some reserve she didn't know existed. On day 91, she saw her street, Maple Grove Avenue. The sign meant nothing to her, but the street itself sang with familiarity. That mailbox, that tree, that house with the blue shutters. She was almost home. On day 93, a neighbor saw her. Mrs. Yamamoto, a woman Carol sometimes talked to at the mailbox. Willow didn't know her name, but she knew her face. Mrs. Yamamoto's eyes went wide. "Oh my God, is that?" She pulled out her phone. Willow didn't understand, didn't care. She kept walking, north, home, Carol. On day 94, on a Tuesday morning in late October, Willow turned into Carol's driveway. She could see the house now. The front door painted dark blue, the window where she used to sit, the rocking chair visible through the glass. She took 3 more steps. Her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the concrete, her cheek pressed against the cold surface, and closed her eyes. 407 miles. 94 days. She'd made it. She was home. Inside the house, Carol was pouring coffee, unaware that the impossible had just arrived on her doorstep. But Mrs. Yamamoto was already calling, already saying the words that would bring Carol running. "Carol, it's Susan Yamamoto. I think I just saw your cat." 12 minutes later, Carol's car screeched into the driveway. She didn't turn off the engine, just threw the door open and ran. Willow, Willow? The cat lying on the driveway didn't look like Willow. This animal was skeletal, filthy, injured beyond what seemed survivable. Its fur was matted with mud and blood. One ear was torn and healed wrong. Its right front paw was swollen grotesquely, the infection visible even through the fur. But Carol knelt beside her anyway, and saw the eyes, pale green, flecked with gold. The left slightly larger than the right. "Oh my God," Carol whispered. "Oh my God, it's you. It's really you." She scooped Willow into her arms, feeling how light she was, how fragile, how her bones pressed sharply against Carol's hands. And she started sobbing. Willow's eyes opened. She looked at Carol's face, so close to hers, the face she'd been walking toward for 94 days. And she made a sound, not quite a meow, something smaller, but unmistakably a greeting. "You came back," the sound seemed to say, "or I came back. We're together again." Carol carried her inside, still crying, and laid her gently on the couch. "Don't move. Don't you dare move. I'm calling the vet right now." She fumbled with her phone, her hands shaking so badly she could barely dial. The emergency vet clinic answered on the second ring. "This is Carol Hendricks. My cat just came home. She's been missing for 3 months, and she just came home and she's hurt. She needs help right now. Bring her in immediately. We'll be ready." Carol wrapped Willow in a blanket, carried her to the car, and drove to the clinic with one hand on Willow's body the entire time, afraid that if she stopped touching her, Willow would disappear again. At the clinic, Dr. Sarah Brennan took one look at Willow, and her expression went from professional to shocked. "How long did you say she's been missing?" 94 days. I was in Seattle when she got out, 400 miles away." Dr. Brennan's eyes widened, and you think, "I think she walked home." The examination took 45 minutes. Dr. Brennan was thorough, gentle, murmuring to Willow the entire time, checking her heart rate, her breathing, her temperature, looking at every injury, drawing blood for testing. Finally, she looked up at Carol. She's severely malnourished, about 4 pounds underweight, which is critical for a cat her size. This paw has a serious infection that spread into the surrounding tissue. Without treatment, it could become septic. She has frostbite on her ear tips and paw pads. Multiple healed injuries, including what looks like claw marks from a large predator, probably a coyote or possibly a bobcat. She's dehydrated, and she has a fever. Carol felt her throat close. "Will she? She's going to be okay," Dr. Brennan said quickly. "She's going to recover. But Ms. Hendricks, what she survived to get back to you, it's extraordinary. Based on these injuries, she traveled through snow at high elevation. She crossed at least one major river. She fought off predators multiple times. She survived on inadequate food and water for 3 months. And she did all of that with an infection that should have killed her." Carol couldn't speak. "Whatever bond you two have," Dr. Brennan continued softly, "it's strong enough that she refused to die. She chose to keep walking. For 94 days, she chose you over survival, over rest, over the easier path." "Can I stay with her?" Carol's voice cracked. "She needs to be on IV fluids tonight. You can visit, but she needs to rest." Carol stayed until midnight, sitting beside Willow's cage in the recovery area, her hand through the bars touching Willow's side, feeling her breathe. When a vet tech finally convinced her to go home, Carol drove back to her empty house and sat on the couch where Willow should have been, and she cried until she had nothing left. The next morning, Carol picked Willow up. She'd prepared everything: new blankets, fresh water in every room, a heating pad set to low and wrapped in soft fabric, the special prescription food Dr. Brennan had recommended. Willow ate slowly, carefully, like she couldn't quite believe food was real and wouldn't be taken away. Then she climbed onto Carol's lap, circled 3 times, and lay down. For the first time in 94 days, Willow purred. The sound was rough, unpracticed, like an engine that hadn't run in months, but it was there. Carol put her hand on Willow's back and felt the vibration, and she understood something she hadn't before. Love isn't measured in years or miles or reasonable expectations. Love is measured in the steps you're willing to take, in the rivers you're willing to cross, in the pain you're willing to endure, in the faith you're willing to have that home exists, even when you can't see it, even when every logical part of you says to stop. Willow had walked 407 miles to prove that, and Carol would spend the rest of Willow's life making sure she knew it had been worth it.